Republicans are weird. Not a new observation, I know, but I feel it requires reinforcement from time to time. Republicans in Arizona have introduced a bill that basically prohibits the construction of new wind farms. The reason for this, on a large scale, is financial. The people who are heavily invested in dirty energy sources are large contributors to political campaigns, so opposing renewable energy will net politicians money. A motivation of, "I'm taking this political position because I want money," is not one that can be used credibly in public. So Republicans have to take increasingly bizarre and outlandish positions to justify opposing renewable energy. Which brings us back to Republicans are weird. For example, last year in Nebraska, which has the potential to build large amounts of wind farms, there was a bill to restrict wind farm construction. When the sponsor was asked about why the restrictions on wind farms were needed, the answer got a little more Dr. Strangelove than you would think.
So I guess I'm just trying to understand what are we afraid of? Are they
What we're
listening
afraid
devices?
of, to paint a picture for you, what we're afraid of is a world where we would need to use those missiles and two Air Force personnel who are inside of a silo separately hit their keys and nothing happens.
That's right, his bill on wind farm restrictions was needed because we may not be able to launch nuclear missiles in case of World War III. Yes, there is more context to it. No, it doesn't make any more sense in context. Anyway, that brings us to Arizona, where Republicans are trying to ban new wind farms.
If you're going to rape us, at least clean up after.
I told you Republicans were weird, and we will get there, but let's talk about how Republicans are going to ban wind farms. There are several mechanisms on how to do this, but the main one is an area restriction. SB 2223 has a restriction that requires the written permission of every landowner within 6 miles of a potential wind farm to give their consent before construction, and also requires that a wind farm not be built within 12 miles of an area zoned for residential use, which is a lot. That's a lot of territory. To use something based on a real-life example, let's say we have a wind farm that is roughly 6 miles in diameter. 6 miles outside of that, you need the permission of every landowner, and 6 miles outside of that cannot touch any area zoned for residential. To put this in size terms, that means we need the permission of around 226 square miles of landowners, and the 678 square miles of surrounding land cannot touch any areas zoned for residential. This is so exclusionary alone, it can be said to end all future construction of wind farms. The original wind farm combined with the exclusion area is bigger than every county in the state of Ohio. It's huge. To drill down on this a little bit further before we get to the wacky hearing on SB 2223, it's not a mystery where you can build wind farms. There are surveys on this. We have maps. For example, this survey from 2007 showing that in Apache County, Arizona, there is exactly one place to build wind farms, north of Springerville. To make this explicit, if this bill passes, anyone who opposes wind power could just buy a small plot of land around where it's feasible to build a wind farm, for say the low price of $65,000 in an isolated example, and they've essentially locked it from being built. And trust me, there are people that believe that strongly in it. You just saw a dude try to sell nuclear missiles not working as a reason not to have wind farms. You just saw someone go off the deep end and call building wind farms rape. Is it really a stretch to spend $65,000 to block a project? Anyway, let's get to the hearing on the bill. First up, let's hear from some of the people who support the bill. I've made a big fuss about how the rich and powerful oppose wind farms, so let's hear from some everyday people about the subject.
My name is David Larson, and I am the president of Greens Peak Hideaway Homeowners Association. We are in support of House Bill 2223.
A better avatar for frivolous, unqualified objections I could not ask for. The president of an HOA. What do you think he's going to complain about? Are the wind turbines too tall? Are they painted the wrong color? Do they leave their trash cans out too long? I wonder what his problem will be. But enough jokes. Let's actually hear his objections.
Without this bill passing, our community does not have the state's protection to keep wind farms at least 12 miles away from residential areas, which is part of the bill. Without this bill passing, our community does not have the state protection for just compensation for diminished property values. We've already heard that property values are dropping. Wait till these things come up and I need to sell my home that I've had for 60 years, I'm not going to get anything for it because they'll be looking at that spinning wheel a mile away.
Now, before I go any further, his objection is that it will hurt his home value if a specific wind farm is built near it. So this is about one specific project, but it will affect the entire state. So any focus on this one specific project should be regarded with suspicion because, why is one specific project being used to legislate to the whole state? Unless, of course, it's an astroturfed effort by dirty energy lobbyists to block any future construction of any wind capacity. But that's conspiracy thinking. I don't have any proof that is what is happening right now, but it's hard for me to put my finger on any other reason this bill would exist. I can't imagine another scenario where someone doesn't want something built near them and the solution is ban it for the entire state. It sounds a little suspicious. That's all I'm saying. Anywho, let's move on to his specific objection. It will hurt the values of homes in the area. Studies say he's wrong, which is probably not a comfort to him or his neighbors. A large energy project in the area could hurt home values, who knows? But to claim the state has a preemptive duty to protect homeowners when there is literally nothing that indicates anything is or is likely to go wrong is a little excessive. To point to a real issue where the state should pay attention, climate change. To wit, the city of Phoenix experienced 113 days of 100-degree heat last year, which, in full or in part, was blamed for 466 deaths, with 191 still under investigation. That number in the future is not going to get smaller. The iffy potential loss of residential property value of Greens Peak Hideaway must be weighed against the benefits of transitioning to an energy generation method that doesn't accelerate the destruction of Arizona. And that's not a fight the homeowners of Greens Peak Hideaway will win. But we've dealt on the Greens Peak Hideaway enough. His objection, while serious, hasn't been proven enough to be taken seriously when the evidence itself doesn't support it actually happening. Even then, it's not going to outweigh the necessity of transitioning to a greener source of energy, and the particular source of energy he's complaining about could power 190,000 homes. It's not a close call. So next person up, a rancher.
I'm Wink Krigler from the X-Diamond Ranch. I'm a multi-generational rancher. We've lived on the same properties since 1879. We've enjoyed the same beauties and so on. This bill, first of all, I have to support it because this project of wind and solar is the ruination of the land that a lot of you have spoken to. Its beauty, its pure water, its grasslands, its forest, and its food security.
The goalpost got moved a little. Did you notice? She's referring to the Lava Run Wind and Solar Project, which was the same project the HOA guy referred to. Which, I mean, you could conceivably believe someone had a real objection to a wind project, but if you are objecting to both a wind and solar project, which are very different and far apart projects, both physically and literally, you were just objecting to renewable energy at that point. These are very different projects in very different places. And I want to emphasize, she's objecting to the renewable energy part of this bill. Do you want to know how I know this? The solar farm is not a part of this bill, but since she brought it up, it is literally beside a coal plant. A pretty dirty one, too. So miss me with the patently false claims of caring about pure water when the solar plant is literally being built next to a coal plant you didn't see fit to mention. Back onto the wind farm project, do you want to see the forests she's referring to? The ones that are going to be torn down by the wind farm? Here, let's put you on Google Street View and, wow, such forest. Many trees. Very elvish. The wind farm's being built in a giant grassland, not in a giant forest. Anyway, let's hear her main objection.
Nobody here has mentioned the devastation from this project. One turbine, 80 acres, 112 turbines. That's 14 sections of land. Do you know how many animals can feed on 14 sections of land?
Hey, you want to hear about something funnier than how many animals can feed on 14 sections of land? Whose sections of land are they? You see, when this rancher goes off on all that would be lost by not letting the land be used for grazing cattle, she's neglecting to mention one small fact, that it's state land and not private. The difference being that ranchers are not entitled to the use of state land. They are leasing it, and not for a ton of money. To put numbers to it, grazing brings in about 36 cents per an acre per year. This wind farm project, on the other hand, will bring in about $240 per acre per year. We can dicker about unsubstantiated claims about damage to the environment, but in the cold light of day, it's good for the state, it's good for the environment, and ranchers are plain not a profitable enough industry to compete with wind. Which includes her. Yeah, she's probably not thrilled about having to compete with a profitable industry for similar resources, which is probably something she should have mentioned in her spiel, but for some reason didn't. I wonder why. Also, a wind turbine doesn't require 80 complete acres to exist in. That's insane. This isn't some giant pyramid-style wind turbine. It's basically a pinwheel on a pole design. The 80 acres is for the space between the wind turbines, so they aren't all jammed together and blocking each other out from accessing wind. I don't mention this as a nitpicky correction, but to point out the obvious, a massive wind farm doesn't preclude grazing. There's plenty of space between each of these wind turbines for cows to roam and forage to grow. It happens all the time. And to cite a specific case, Arizona literally just had a massive wind farm come online at a cattle ranch. They didn't seem to be having problems at Chevron Butte, but apparently it's all too much for this simple rancher to understand.
I truly hope that all of you can see where we're coming from. We need Lava Run stopped now. Thank you.
Yes, indeed, Carthago delenda est. There does not seem to be sufficient justification for the state to take this action of banning wind farms statewide, neither from the HOA president nor the rancher. But let's get to the main event. Are you ready? Are you ready? I'm ready. Are you ready?
Hello, I'm Jineane Ford, and I did the news in the Valley for a lot of years. And the reason I mention that is now I'm doing radio, and I have a radio talk show in the White Mountains. And I have been bombarded with hundreds of people and residents there, so concerned. And I just want to be very, very honest and direct about this.
Yes, yes! We are here. It's the person, the one who compared the wind farm to rape. It's her!
If you're going to rape us, at least clean up after.
These people are weird, and I couldn't ask for a better caricature of that than a radio talk show host promising to be honest. But that's enough hyperbole for me. Let's hear hyperbole from a master.
And I will say that of the hundreds of people I've had on my radio show, and we keep talking about this, and I keep asking everyone to come in. We talked to a group of environmental students from ASU. We found something out. Do you know what they don't publicize? That no one tells you, okay? In the White Mountains, because of our golden eagles and all the things, they have to eradicate all the animals on the ground. Fish and Game confirmed this. They're going to eradicate all the little animals on the ground so that the birds fly less. We have tons of migratory birds in the White Mountains. They will all be flying over, and they'll all be destroyed by these windmills.
That's a weird claim. Source? Oh, I heard it from some students. That sounds super real and definitely not something she made up. Now, she did say that the Department of Game and Fish confirmed it, but I have my doubts. To be specific, if you kill every animal on the ground in a 28 square mile area, which is already a very hard goal to accomplish, what stops animals from outside said area from repopulating the dead zone? Will you have to kill them too? Do you have to form a permanent animal extermination squad to deal with this? I have so many questions. So many, in fact, I emailed the Arizona Department of Game and Fish Public Relations Officer for confirmation of all this. Here's what they sent me back. To whom it may concern, we do not remove animals ahead of a wind farm being installed. When these types of projects are approved, our department will provide developers with information to mitigate wildlife issues. This never includes the killing of wildlife. That is awesome. She made the whole thing up, which, yeah, of course she did. The whole thing doesn't make sense. Even if you manage to kill all the animals on the ground, how the hell are the eagles supposed to know that? You gonna put up a big sign that says, "We killed all the rabbits. Will all eagles and Lenny from Of Mice and Men please continue on to the next highway exit?" Oh, she is so dumb. But moving on to the money shot, what exactly did she compare to rape?
They also don't tell you that the decommissioning And the thing, these windmills, the size of these windmills, all you have to do is look on Grok, not Google, it'll be 15 pages down, and you will find that the buried rebar and steel and toxic materials, each windmill, I've been asking on my radio station, I ask everybody, how many tons is going to be left under each windmill? How many tons? Everyone guessed 1 or 2 tons. It's 2,500 tons to 3,500 tons now of rebar, steel, and shit that is at the bottom of our windmills. Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Yes, the concrete foundations of wind turbines. No, I'm not kidding. That's what's being compared to sexual assault.
So, if you're going to abuse us and you're going to rape our land, because the White Mountains, I believe, is really special. Our water tables, we have the Coconino Aquifer. How long can those tons and tons of rebar, steel, and junk sit right above our water table?
What do you think she thinks cities are made of? Cotton candy? Horseradishes? Soap bars? Maybe I should ask Grok like she told us to. I'm sure Elon Musk has some very interesting answers that are definitely not influenced by ketamine. If the concrete, rebar, and steel from this wind farm would cause extreme contamination to the environment, then the environment is already poisoned to an extent that it is unrecoverable, because almost everything humanity builds, from bridges to highways to buildings, is made of those things. Wind farms aren't unique in that respect. And let's be specific about what we are arguing about. There's a giant coal plant like 15 miles north of Springerville, where all these people are from. Whatever unsubstantiated comments they'd like to make about a possible wind farm, it's 100 times worse for a coal plant. The emissions are universally terrible for Arizona, and unlike wind, there's very much a price to harvest the inputs, i.e. coal versus wind. To quote John Preen, then the coal company came with the world's largest shovel, and they tortured the timber and stripped all the land. Well, they dug for their coal till the land was forsaken. I heard many of the people opposing the wind farm speak of their love for the beauty of the White Mountains, and how they didn't want to lose it, and I understand that. But unless they are willing to make the case that having to endure the sight of a wind farm is equivalent to mountaintop removal, I don't want to hear it. It's not the same. Anyway, we've heard enough from the weirdos. Let's hear from a professional. You know, someone who doesn't traffic in lies and misinformation, who isn't hiding any conflicts of interest, or is a president of an HOA. Let's hear from the Sierra Club.
Sierra Club is opposed to House Bill 2223. And the reason is because it does seem to be clearly intended to hinder development of wind energy. The provisions in it are provisions that we don't have for other electricity generation. We don't require that gas plants, for example, be 6 miles away from residential property unless someone signs off on it, or even coal plants for that matter. Counties and cities already can deny these projects if they think they're not in the right place. When they come in for their rezoning, they can review them. And I would argue that this bill is actually anti-property rights because it limits the ability of people to develop a wind project on their property if they're interested in doing one. And it gives one person veto power over that project. We've heard about some of the impacts from windmills. There are impacts from everything. I would just reiterate again, buildings, cars, and cats that are outdoor kill a lot of birds. And there's been a lot of effort to reduce the impacts, and I can refer you to some studies on that.
I loved all of that, but the capper was, if you guys want to read some professional studies, I can get you some. That was great. You think they care about studies? Do you know what radio hose lady was posting about 2 months ago? She posted a picture of Santa wrecking into a wind turbine. Whatever her actual sources of facts are, she claims AI and call-in viewers are her main sources of information. She left the truth in the rearview mirror a long time ago. And this video could go on like this for a while, but it's time to wrap it up. Bad faith actors are taking advantage of a locally unpopular project to try to leverage that into enough support to get a statewide ban on wind energy. If they succeed in their goal, that 113 days straight of 100-degree heat that Phoenix had is going to be a pleasant memory. Oppose HB 2223. I'm History Sock, and I'll see you at the next committee hearing.